heroes.
It's an old-fashioned notion.
A visionary, a genius, ensuring freedom around the globe.
A symbol to the nation, a hero to the world.
The beacon of hope, shining out across the stars.
I look around at us, you know what I see?
A bunch of a-holes.
Possibility. You think you know how the world works?
The world is changing. We need heroes.
Wakanda forever!
Our very strength invites challenge. Challenge incites conflict. Conflict breeds catastrophe. The thing isn't beautiful because it lasts.
We're in the end game now. Before we're done, we still have one promise to keep.
If we can't protect the Earth, you can be damn sure we'll avenge it.
Whatever it takes.
If your friends are nerdy and you are nerdy too, I wanna talk to you. Friends talking nerdy.
Hey everybody, welcome to a very special episode of Friends Talking Nerdy. This is thanks. We have
Sterling Wilson.
and joining us is a new person to the team here. Tell everybody who you are.
My name is Kim.
All right, now as is tradition on this show, before we proceed with anything else, if you are new on the show, you got to answer a question.
Okay.
What is your nerd origin story?
Oh my. Well, I come from two parents who were both nerds. They met in computer school in the 70s, and they got together and they had me. And my first exposure to any kind of nerd culture was going to see Star Wars in the theater in 1977. I am dating myself.
I'm almost there myself, so I know that feeling. All right, so the reason we are here today is that all three of us saw this little independent movie that just came out. A little movie called Avengers Endgame, and we wanted to talk a bit about it. Just like we did last year with Infinity War, we're going to start off with our non-spoiler impressions. So if you want to hear what we have to say, we're gonna relate our thoughts on the movie without spoiling anything, and then we will have a firm, definitive time that we will tell you to stop listening if you don't. So with that, we'll start off with a new person here. Kim, non-spoiler impressions of the movie.
One word, wow. Just wow. It tied up all the stories. Is that spoilery? Should I not say that?
Well, I mean, that was going to be the assumption. I mean, if
true.
they had failed, then they wouldn't have done that.
That's true. It answered a lot of questions. It left me with others. I enjoyed it thoroughly. It was 3 hours, but it went by just like a snap of Thanos' fingers. It was great. I had a great time, and I'm looking forward to seeing it again.
Nice. What about you, Sterling?
It was everything that I hoped it would be and more. It was emotional. It was definitely, from the very beginning, very emotional. And a lot of the labor and work that went into it was just very emotional. And you could tell from the cast, the crew, everybody.
Yep.
Agreed.
Well, for me, I would have to say this film is the biggest love letter to comic books ever made.
I agree.
It's you know, whether it be the original Marvel team of Stan, Jack, Steve, and other folks in the Marvel bullpen, to, you know, folks from our era of Brian Bendis, Joe Quesada, Kurt Busiek, to you know, new writers that are hitting it big now, like G. Willow Wilson, and many, many, many others. This is just wow. This is the singular greatest popcorn movie ever made, and I do feel it is important to make that distinction, because I will be the first to admit that if you put Endgame against something like Apocalypse Now or The Godfather 2, they're both trying to accomplish different things, and it's not really fair to compare them. You know, so for the type of movie that Endgame is trying to be, it is the absolute best.
I would agree with that, definitely. I mean, it's not something you go into thinking you're going to learn something about yourself and about life and maybe be exposed to like a whole new culture or something like that. It's definitely a popcorn movie. It's meant for summer. I'm kind of surprised that it didn't come out Memorial Day weekend, because it's definitely a Memorial Day weekend kind of movie. But I don't care. We didn't have to wait any longer.
Yeah.
That's all that really matters, right?
As long as I don't have to wait longer.
Oh my god. It was, it definitely left me with tingles after, like, all this time. What was it, 11 years of films?
Yep, starting in 2008.
21 films in total?
22. This is, Endgame is 22.
Okay. And it didn't leave me hungry for more. I felt very, very satiated. I had a great time. There was just so many moments throughout the whole film where it just completely just gave you tingles.
And speaking of that, the crowd we saw it with, Sterling, that last hour, and again, we'll get into that in detail in a few minutes here, but that last hour, the crowd we saw it with was louder than the WWE crowd we saw at the house show.
Yeah, it was electrifying.
I mean, Sterling at one point almost leaped up out of his chair and was like, yeah! And we'll get to that point in a minute here.
Oh my god.
But even though at the start of the movie, I loved Sterling had to break out his dad voice, like, we didn't pay for commentary, people here.
Yeah, you know, just stop talking. Just stop talking, man. Like, if you go to a theater, do not talk when a movie starts.
Common etiquette, yeah.
I completely agree with you. I've had to stand up and give the stern mom voice to people, and I'm not even a mom. But I've done that before in theaters, because I'm like, look, I paid however much money I paid to see the movie and not listen to you wise asses.
Especially when the beginning of the movie starts and you're just like, who is that? Who is that? And it's like, you don't know who that is. You need to not be here.
Oh, it reminds me of a date I had in my 20s. So I brought this young lady to go see Shakespeare in Love. And it seemed like every 5 minutes, like, why are they talking like that? Who's that? Why are they talking funny? And I'm like, oh, God. But, you know, I can make a whole podcast about, like, my dating life. You know, it'd be hilarious. Oh, yeah, anyway.
Oh, I've got bad date stories, too. But,
yeah. I mean,
I think we all have at least a few.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. With that, let's put the line in the sand right here. If you are listening to this and you have not watched Endgame and you do not want to be spoiled, turn this off right now. We will have some new episodes coming up soon, I swear, I promise. But right now, we are going to commence talking about spoilers, going to a bit of a deep dive. Are we ready?
Oh, yeah, I'm ready.
Oh, dude. So ready.
All right. Well, Sterling, we'll start off with you.
I had a wonderful time with this film, man. from the very beginning, I am excited to see Hawkeye. I am excited to see where everything left off. It was really good to see them not just flash forwarding super quickly. Like, you see kind of how everybody's kind of taking it all in, and you kind of fast forward a little bit to the meeting where Captain America is helping, like, people just adjusting to life after the snap, and you know, he's talking to people like, "Oh, hey, I went on my first date today," and it was good.
Yeah,
and then he started crying. You know.
Well, that's a funny part though. That's the guy who played that character is actually one of the directors of the film, and his character was the first openly homosexual character in the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Really?
I thought that was pretty interesting too.
Yep.
Yeah. No judgment from anybody, and especially like after a cataclysmic event, no one was like, "Really, you're gay?" And like, we have to rebuild the population. It's like, no, let's just like do your thing.
Enjoy your love.
Yeah.
Me, I loved the first thing that really stuck out to me was near the beginning when they go to Thanos' planet where he's hiding out, and I think it was just after Thor cut off Thanos' head. Spoilers. And Scarlett Johansson. Some people have been critical in the past of her role in Black Widow. They think she's just there to look good in that outfit, but look at her face. When she realizes at that particular point in time that there is no other way to get those people back, she was real close to breaking down. And Natasha Romanoff always comes across as wanting to be tough and strong. That's what she was trained to do. But finding out that, her and the rest of the Avengers not being able to complete the mission, not being able to fix things at all. I mean, obviously they do at the end, but at that point she did not think they were going to fix it, and she was just breaking down, and I thought that was a brilliant performance.
It was, definitely. I mean, you could just from like top to bottom, you could just see like her entire body just go from like, what? And she was just crushed. Mm-hmm. And her body language just totally put that forward. And actually, right from the start, I only saw Infinity War once. I didn't see it again. I only saw it one time, and I know. But you
call yourself a nerd.
I know.
It's just like it's a lot to take in for one sitting.
It was a lot to take in, and I remember I saw it with Tim, and it was just at the end of that movie, I was just like, wow, all these characters that I've known and loved are just gone, and I just honestly I don't think I could stand to watch it again. It was just really, really crushing, and then seeing the movie start up immediately with Hawkeye, and I'm like, oh good, Hawkeye didn't die. Oh wait, and then his family disappears, and my heart just like broke for him. I almost started crying right then.
And that's the thing. That's one thing I've discovered in both nights in watching the movie. There were people in the audience, like they knew the Hawkeye scene. They knew what was going to happen, but seeing that little bits of dust floating away, people were gasping. Like yesterday at the movie when we saw it, Sterling, the young ladies behind us were tearing up.
They were bawling. They were bawling.
Well,
you could hear it too. They had that like snotty nose from like the uncontrollable crying.
Oh, I heard some of that today too. Definitely.
Yeah, and those ladies yesterday were like, no. But I thought that was great. I love that a movie can bring that type of emotion out of people.
Oh, definitely. I mean, that part is great that it can make people just put it all out there and just invest so much in fictional characters. But at the same time, it was such a touching moment they were having there too. Hawkeye sort of like training his successor in a way. Mm-hmm. And he and his daughter just bonding and having this really beautiful moment, and he being so proud of her and basically encouraging her in a way that a lot of dads would encourage their boys to, like, oh yeah, catch the ball with me, son. Oh yeah, great. No, he's like, he sees his daughter has this talent for archery, and he's just encouraging it, and you can tell he is so proud of her. And then
he puts mayo on a hot dog.
Oh God, yeah, that too. I was like, ugh, mayo on a hot dog, what? But yeah, Yeah, that just crushed me right there from the beginning. I'm like, oh god, we got to get Hawkeye's family back. We got to do it for Hawkeye. You know.
Can we talk about like soul crushing moments for a hot second?
Yeah.
How does everybody feel about Fat Thor?
I liked the fact that they referred to him as the Big Lebowski. That made my heart sing because that's one of my absolute favorite movies of all time. I dragged him to it this last summer, made him watch it because they were playing it in the theaters for the anniversary. But as soon as they said they made a Lebowski reference, I'm like, oh my god, that's so right on. And I love that part.
Yeah.
I liked that. I think it could have gone wrong at a number of times, but he walked the fine line of being comedic while still having tons of emotion behind it, because basically this was Thor recognizing the fact that he has feelings. In the previous movies, he had to be the alpha male, the type A male, and men are supposed to have feelings. They're supposed to fight. They're supposed to be kings. And then just seeing your friends, seeing people you fought alongside just disappear into dust, that would mess with anybody. And it was an interesting character arc. Plus, I love the fact that it led him at the end of the movie to join up with the Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah. Well, okay, let's kind of stay with this a little bit, because after he tried to kill Thanos, and then him just calling out saying, like, you should have gone for the head, and, like, how much would you just, like, dwell on that? Like, it even, like, where he ripped his head off, he was like, I went for the head. And it's like, bro, 5 years later, and that shit's still stuck with you. And, like, oof, you can see it definitely weighed on him so heavily.
And that 5 years bit, I know when you saw the caption 5 years later, you gasped.
I did gasp because I pretty much stayed away from pre-trailers and everything. I didn't want any spoilers. I just wanted to go into this like pretty much blank slate, just enjoy it and not have any preconceived notions of what might happen. And I'd had no idea that they were going to go into the future like that. I was just like, 5 years later, I'm just like, oh my gosh, I can't imagine how rough that must be. And then they started showing the pictures of New York, and then they're in a support group, and it's Captain America leading a support group. And I'm like, of course Captain America is going to lead a support group, because he's, he's kind of a goody two-shoes. Of course he's going to do that.
It, man. Like, even though, like, half the world's population is dead, he's just, like, saw whales in the Hudson for the first time. And he's like, yeah, man, less pollution, less people fishing, and less people traveling. It was a really good sight to see, just, like, whales in the Hudson. And I'm like, so many things are going wrong, and he's just like, oh, wow, that's really cool. And I'm just like, whoa.
And there are less people admiring America's ass.
Oh my god. That ass is not flattering. No, that's America's ass. Oh god.
I loved the fact that they directly mentioned Back to the Future, because they took the time travel aspect from Back to the Future. They followed the same type of rules with that, so it was great that they were able to.
It was so funny. He was like, where are you pulling all this information from? Star Trek, Back to the Future, Terminator, and there's just listing off all of these movies. Did he say Dirty Dancing?
No, Scott Lang said Die Hard.
Die Hard, yeah. And I was just sitting there, and I was like, again, like, we're getting very theoretical with time travel, but they're all just referencing movies.
And they referenced Hot Tub Time Machine, too. And Sebastian Stan is in Hot Tub Time Machine.
Yeah. Oh, man, that was so funny. But it just was, like, really, really funny, because people put a lot of weight behind these things, and they're just movies. And it was so funny to kind of have a callback to that, where, like, they're just like, so you're telling me Back to the Future's just bullshit?
But I think, too, those type of pop culture references, I guess, are ways that we as a society these days are, are able to kind of relate to each other in a way. Because if we're not able to get our point across in one particular way, you can always say it's just like that scene from this movie, or just like that scene from that
Totally.
movie. Yeah, and it's kind of that's the beauty of what pop culture can do, whether it's movies, comic books, music. That you have that shared moment with somebody that you may not necessarily interact with in any other way apart from your love of that.
And that's true, and that whole scene also brought in the fact that Paul Rudd's character Ant-Man, he's just kind of an average Joe. He's not a superhero. He's just kind of an average Joe, but he still wants to help, and he still wants to contribute. And just like what Tim was saying, it just sort of all those time travel. I'm sorry, I'm just thinking about that whole scene. It just cracks me.
Speaking of like weird character developments and stuff too, what does everybody think about hulked out Banner? I guess
Professor Hulk.
Professor Hulk. There you go. That's a great idea.
Yeah.
Kind of reminded me of Beast from X-Men.
Yeah.
Because definitely, at least in the early comics for X-Men, Beast was definitely Professor Beast, and I just look like this. I'm actually very smart, kind of a thing. And that's immediately what I thought of when I saw, basically Professor Hulk. That's a good way to describe him. I thought immediately of Beast from X-Men.
I just love like all of the references where he's just like, be delicate. And he's like, I am delicate. And he's like, I'm pretty sure you're Hulk right now.
And the kids taking the selfie with them in the restaurant.
Everybody say green.
And then he dabs. Oh my god, such a dad.
Oh
That's a dad joke right there.
Yeah, I don't want to take a goddamn photo. What would we all say would be some of our favorite moments?
I know exactly my favorite moment.
I know my favorite moment too.
All right.
Who's gonna start?
We'll start with you.
I will default to the guest.
Okay, I would have to say it was that girl power moment. And I think we all know which moment that was.
Pretty fucking savage.
When all the lady characters, all the strong female characters that I absolutely love, minus Black Widow, which
we'll get into.
Minus Black Widow. But, oh my god, that moment, I was like, can we just make this the whole movie? Just like all of these ladies like going around and solving crimes and being pals and having slumber parties and stuff. Because seriously, I would watch the hell out of that movie.
Flying around and shit.
That would be awesome. Oh, good my god, I want that movie. Make that movie. Somebody make that movie.
Well, I know in the comics they have a team of all women. What?
X-Men.
No, not X-Men. There's an Avengers team that's all women.
Oh gosh.
Well, Sterling, go ahead with your next moment. I'll see if I can find it here.
Oh man, I think it was the showdown between Thanos and Thor, and then Captain America just kind of swings in, hoisting Mjolnir.
Oh gosh,
fucking shit up. I was so excited to see that. Like, everybody talks about, he's probably worthy, and he even moved the hammer, and then like he just swings it, and then Thor's just like, I knew it. Oh man, and he just comes in with fucking lightning and the goddamn hammer, and it was just so fucking cool.
Well, even today, there was once Cap got Mjolnir, there was a guy in the audience who was like, "Yeah!"
Yeah, there was definitely some people in the audience that were like, "Hell yeah!" and weren't expecting that. I wasn't expecting that. I mean, but oh gosh, yeah, that was definitely a great moment.
A-Force is the name of that team.
Gotcha. Avengers Force, yeah.
Yeah, She-Hulk, Spider-Woman, Wasp, looks like Dazzler, Medusa, and a few other characters. But, Marvel's already created some teams that didn't have, for the movies or TV shows that weren't a part of the comics, so they can easily get them all together.
I want a She-Hulk movie.
I love She-Hulk.
I do too.
Is, like, the coolest, strongest gal, but she, like, really balances femininity while being badass. And I was just really had a thing for She-Hulk.
And she, I believe, was the first Marvel character that broke the fourth wall. It was not Deadpool.
Interesting.
in her comics. Yeah.
I think you're right. Yeah.
Yep.
What was your favorite moment?
My favorite moment would be it would be the start of the battle. For me, it was that moment where Cap's just got to his feet. He senses defeat, but then just buzzing in the radio, and then on your left, he turns. The circles open up and the moment I referred to earlier when Spider-Man swung onto the screen, Sterling almost jumped up from his chair and was just like, "Yeah!"
Man, he's like Peter Parker. Spider-Man is my favorite all-time superhero, like hands down, by a mile, like no joke. It just,
And just seeing, and I loved that sweeping shot that they had when all the Avengers were running towards Thanos and his armies. I never, ever thought I would see something like that on the big screen. I mean, just when you're a kid watching, in my case, Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends. For you, Sterling, it was probably X-Men, the animated series, reading the comic books over the years. You enjoy these stories, and you never think that they would get that type of treatment, but my goodness, they did it.
Well, my favorite little snippet of that, dude, man, is when Steve is just standing there. His shield's broken, and, like, the hammer is like, fuck all. And he's just like, it's just me. I'm going to just tighten this shield up. And I'm just going to try, And I love that. I can respect that so much. And, to see everybody kind of run to him.
Yeah.
And Peter was just like, yeah, Dr. Strange said it's been like 5 years and we just have to get here and help out. And I was just like, oh, God, yeah. I get that.
And then, of course, the hug between Iron Man and Spider-Man.
Oh, God.
What did we think about Tony Stark meeting his fate?
Before we go into this, can we talk about the time travel where he met his own dad?
Well, before we do that, we'll discuss that. But the scene right before that one interesting thing that I have not seen in reviews since then is Loki. Loki disappeared. They never found him.
Yeah. I kind of wanted to jump back before we get a little too hard into the conclusion, because there's a lot that happened during this discovery of time travel and what led up to the final conclusion.
Yeah, there was a whole lot of stuff that happened in there when they were bouncing around trying to get the stones, and some things that I was just completely what? Blown away by. So
because we see Loki get away during the the scramble for the stones, because the whole concept of going back in time was grabbing the stones and using them in the future before they could set everything right. And then there was a team that went to New York to grab 3 stones. There was a team that went back in time to the early 70s.
No, that happened after. That was after the New York thing, because they had to go to the 70s to not only get the 1970s version of the Tesseract, but they had to go to a place where Hank Pym was still alive to get some Pym particles.
So,
yeah, they went to the 70s after things went sideways in New York.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha. And then the Hulk got the time stone from the Sorcerer Supreme at the time.
The ancient one.
Yes, the ancient one. And they were talking about, connected timelines and how it's linear, not cyclical. And you don't, create a branching path. You just kind of destroy and, corrupt other timelines. And then and then the Soul Stone. That was such a crazy scene, man. To see Hawkeye and Black Widow duking it out, essentially to see who could kill themselves and get the Soul Stone.
And I was upset about that. I mean, I've been a professed fan of Black Widow for a long time now. And it just makes me wonder what the movie's going to be about. Now, one thing I wanted to talk about, too, is the fact that they made a big deal about once the Avengers were able to fix everything, they needed to bring the stones back to their original point in time before they were taken. Wouldn't that include the Soul Stone? Wouldn't any sort of sacrifice made with the Soul Stone technically be reversed by putting it back?
No.
Well, here's a question. If there had to be a sacrifice made for the Soul Stone, why couldn't Hawkeye and Black Widow team up and sacrifice Red Skull?
Right?
But,
yeah.
You got to remember...
I was thinking that the whole time.
You got to remember, the sacrifice is, you got to sacrifice someone you love.
Yeah.
And, and that's another thing I like, too. At first, in the first Avengers movie, I thought that they were hinting at Black Widow and Hawkeye having a relationship like they did in the comics, but you find out Hawkeye's married in the movies, of course. What I liked is the fact that they were friends. It felt like an honest friendship between a man and a woman, and I really, really appreciated that they didn't take some of the cheats that you normally see in movies. You don't have any sort of indication in the past that Hawkeye and Natasha had any sort of a relationship. They were just close.
But then if it has to be somebody you loved...
You can love a friend.
I know, that's true, but can Thanos actually love being the psychopath that he is? And how could he have sacrificed Gamora?
And that's the thing, when you're in a delusional state, it's just your delusional mind telling you what you love. It might not be what everybody else considers love. It could just be a perception.
To me, this is kind of like arguing about, when is midnight in the Gremlins franchise, if you're not supposed to feature Gremlins after midnight. Because it's always midnight somewhere.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Because that's another reason to not compare a film like Endgame to something like The Godfather 2. Because, in terms of the script itself, in terms of the story, there were some things that occurred that, if it happened in a quote-unquote serious film, it would be shredded apart. But, again, because you're dealing more with characters and emotions and not necessarily a plot-driven story, you can get away with, little missing things here and there.
Yeah.
I think
also, Nomad Hawkeye just going around killing people who he thought was unworthy of surviving the snap, man, just because he was pissed off about losing his family.
And I like that. I like that to a point. We were just watching before we did the recording here a review, and they made an interesting point that after Natasha meets up with it was Ronan. At that time it was Hawkeye, but in the comics he goes by Ronan as well. After they meet up, you don't really delve anymore into Clint Barton's loss. It's essentially glossed over. It's just like he kills all these people, but when they need him, he's a good guy now, and they don't talk about consequences.
Well, and I think that's why he was more willing to kill himself, because he was like, man, I've done some fucked up shit. And you saw it a lot throughout the whole movie, man. They were just like, don't give me hope. Don't like make me think we can fix this. Which it was interesting to see because it was kind of sad seeing them that broken. They were really broken, and they were just like, yeah, I don't even want to hope at this point that we can fix it, because I have lost all hope.
But the thing is everybody handles loss and grief in different ways, and I mean, Hawkeye went and did what he felt would be a service to people who were left, which was eliminating the criminal element, and then Thor went and drank and ate his feelings. So, I mean, everybody handles their problems differently, and it's definitely interesting to see how each person reacted to the snap.
Yep.
How did you guys feel about the time travel element? Like, them not being able to really figure it out, and Tony was just like, oh, hey, I got it. Like, I figured out time travel.
On the one hand, it was a little too quick. In terms, I mean, if we were talking about a plot-based story, it would be a little too convenient that he found it essentially over dinner. On the other hand, it fit with Tony's character.
What was it?
I mean, this is the guy who made a power source out of like junk in a cave in Afghanistan for his heart. So, I mean, if he can do that, why can't he solve time travel?
I'm not saying he couldn't. I'm just saying it felt. And to be clear, this is another one of my nitpicks here. I'm not saying it's bad that it happened, but he did find the solution to time travel really quickly. And that, little things like that, if they're, interspersed throughout the film and you don't have too many of them, you can ignore that. But if you had a bunch of scenes like that where everything just happened to fall into place just miraculously, like the rat in Scott Lang's van.
Yeah, the rat in the storage unit.
That was a little too convenient.
But that's the way you have to push the plot forward, though.
Yeah. Again, nitpick, not complaining.
What I would say is, it seemed like as they were talking about the possibility of time travel, that they were going over a lot of very specific topics in regards to theoretical physics, and it seemed pretty well researched, and they seemed pretty familiar with a lot of these things. And then the introduction of the microverse and Scott talking about it, again, Tony seemed very familiar with the concept.
Well, he had
been doing his own thing,
probably
research.
I mean, he had 5 years in the middle of nowhere.
Exactly. And Tony seems like the type of person to try and think of something like that in the meantime.
Now, what would we say would be the most impactful scene of the movie?
I honestly, it caught me off guard seeing Tony having a kid. Not only that, a daughter.
That caught me off guard too. But then again, I was like, a genius, Morgan Stark, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Because it's obvious she had some smarts building there.
And he hinted at it. He even said the name Morgan in Infinity War at the beginning, that he had a dream they had a baby and they called it Morgan after his crazy uncle. The most impactful for me was Tony Stark's burial. And I sent you a text earlier in the day, Sterling, but
yes.
In the movie, you go once. I think they cremated him or something, and then put a wreath in the water and let it float away. And then you see the camera go between like Pepper Potts and Morgan Stark. Then you go to other characters. You get past Vision. No, not Vision. Sorry, Vision's not in the movie. You go past Wanda, and I think she was standing next to the Winter Soldier, and behind them is just this kid. That kid was the kid from Iron Man 3.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yep.
Yeah. So it was to kind of put kind of a relevant relationship between the two. So, like, not only did he help Tony, find his way home and, like, help with all of this, like, stuff, but it seems like it's to convey that they had an existing relationship like Peter, where they were helping each other and, like, mentoring and working together. And I would not be surprised to see someone like him trying to take over the mantle of Iron Man.
Now, I'm glad you brought it up that way. Let's do a segue here. Where do we think the MCU's going now?
Yeah. Well, so to kind of, like, give this a little bit of, like, vision. So, Thor is kind of hanging out with Guardians of the Galaxy. Captain America went back in time to put all the soul stones and hammers and everything back to where they were supposed to be, and aged himself to an old man. So he came back to the present as an old man.
No, he went back in time, and it was the last scene of the movie. He went back in time, and Peggy Carter throughout the movie.
He went back in time, lived his life, and showed up after he left as an old man.
Well, I don't know if they were implying that he just magically appeared. I got the impression that it was Falcon, Winter Soldier, and Hulk helping Steve go back in time to put the stones back. Their attention was at the time machine deal. I had the impression that Steve Rogers just quietly walked up to that bench by the lake and was just there, and they only noticed him after he went. Yeah.
So he went back in time, did what he needed to do, and was just like, I'm going to hang out with Peggy, because you know what? She's a swell gal. And just decided to live out his life. And I like that. I really like that. That was a really great way to end it. And I even like the subtle, him with his wedding ring and like sitting on the bench, handing over the mantle to Falcon for Captain America. It's really sad we see the Black Widow, like, who gave her life for the Soul Stone, like, they apparently couldn't bring her back. So all of these characters who are essentially stepping away from the MCU and where we're going to next, there are a lot of questions there, man. There's just like kind of just really up in the air at this point.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we have Spider-Man Far From Home coming up in a couple of months. In terms of the future, it's we got to take into account the new Disney Plus app, because they're going to have a number of Marvel Studios related TV shows. You got the Winter Soldier and Falcon TV show that they're making. They have one called WandaVision, and that's another. Before we talk about that, Vision was not in the movie. So they did not resolve whether he is truly dead, or whether fan speculation of Shuri getting enough of his being into Wakanda computers to be able to put that back into him at a later point, which with a TV show coming up would make sense. But that is another open question that was not resolved from Infinity War.
Yeah,
I really liked watching Scarlet Witch battle Thanos. That was pretty cool. I would love to see anything more relating to Scarlet Witch, because I think she's a really underutilized character.
Well, now that they got the X-Men back, I mean, there are a number of things they can do. I mean, the one that comes to mind, the easiest one they could pull off after the X-Men are introduced, of course, would be House of M.
Yeah.
That's where Wanda essentially goes crazy and kills... she doesn't kill off the mutants, but she prevents them from essentially breeding further. Marvel did...
She screams out, no more mutant.
Yeah, that's...
And a lot of the mutants outside of her, like, radius, so outside of a 200-foot radius, I think, all of those mutants lost their powers. So, one, they had their powers, like, gone, and then the others, like, no more mutants were being created. So, after that, I think there was less than, like, 200 mutants in the world.
Something like that. And, I mean, the reason Marvel did that was, at the time, the movie rights to the X-Men were being held by 20th Century Fox. So if Marvel created a new mutant character, the majority of the money being made would go to 20th Century Fox, not them.
Right.
But now that they got the X-Men back into the fold, they could have because Scarlet Witch has already have a history of essentially being jerked around. It's not her fault that she is as emotional as she is. But when you have, being held captive by Hydra with her brother, seeing her brother die, being held by the Avengers against her will, seeing the love of her life, a sentient machine killed in front of her, what more are they going to do to that woman before she snaps?
And in the comic books, they kind of go into it a little bit more. Like, she didn't really realize the ability she has. Like, she thought it was her ability to manipulate luck, or the probability of luck, and it's more of her ability to manipulate everything. Like, to a point where she herself is like an infinity gauntlet.
It would be nice if they did more with her character, but got away from the woman goes crazy and snaps kind of trope, because they're doing that. They're doing that with Dark Phoenix, that's coming out, and they're doing that. And apparently they've done that with Scarlet Witch. But I mean, there's so much more you can do with a character than just, oh, she's a lady and she's on the edge, she's gonna snap.
Yeah, with her in the comic book, she had a mental episode. Like, her father was manipulating her. Mental mutants were manipulating her, and she was like really could not tell imagination from reality, and it was a pretty crazy.
Pretty crazy. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's all on Marvel Unlimited, folks.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's a lot of movies in development. Guardians 3 got James Gunn back. Doctor Strange 2 and Black Panther 2, I guess, are in the pipeline.
The Black Widow movie. You got the Eternals. That's going to be an interesting one.
And honestly, man, if they were to end it now and just be like, yeah, after Spider-Man, I don't think we're going to do anything, I'd be okay with that. I feel like it would just be like a really nice bow on a very well-wrapped package, and I would be so okay with that.
I get that, because the feeling is that feeling is that there's no way to go but down at this point when you've had such an amazing movie like this. But I think it is time that, they're doing the right thing. They're not continuing on with the same story going forward. We have a definitive ending now, but we still have the same characters going on to a new story. And they're going to meet new people, and with the X-Men and the Fantastic Four coming along, and Deadpool's going to be Ryan Reynolds still. So who knows what they can do there? I mean, we could potentially see one of the Deadpool movies be Deadpool Kills the Marvel Universe, the movie. That would be great to see.
I would love to see Deadpool and Spider-Man together, because those are one of my favorite team-ups, is Deadpool and Spider-Man.
Deadpool and Valkyrie would be good.
Yeah, I'd be behind that.
I think she'd probably cut his head off.
It would be hilarious, though.
It would. But yeah, going forward, what do you think? What do you think will happen?
I'm not sure what's going to happen, honestly. I mean, it could go in any direction, but I'm definitely would be looking forward to seeing another Black Panther movie. Mm-hmm. I really enjoyed Black Panther and Doctor Strange, mostly because I have a thing for Benedict Cumberbatch. I admit it. I have a thing for him. So he was not in this movie enough. Not in there enough. I would love to see another Doctor Strange movie. I'd love to see a Black Widow movie. I'm not sure where they would go with it. I'm not sure.
Prequel.
Yeah, prequel would be cool. More Captain Marvel,
I think
of
it was
course.
like an origin from what they talked about.
I don't know. Do they really need to do an origin movie for her, though? Because they kind of went over her origin story already.
But did they? Like, she could have been lying.
It was in...
Well, in Age of Ultron, she had a flashback back to the Red Room. Gotcha. And so, I don't know what they're going to do with Black Widow, the Black Widow movie at this point, unless there is a plan on somehow bringing her back or establishing. Because that's the thing too. They did not definitively say that they do not have the ability to time travel anymore. So, in reality, they could easily go to a different timeline and pull a different Natasha Romanoff out to help them with a particular fight.
That's possible. They could do that. I mean, Thanos brought Gamora back, and we had that interaction with Quill and Gamora, where Quill was just
No, they went back into time. Thanos, that was the 2014 Thanos and 2014 Gamora.
I know. What I'm saying is that
they brought
the
her
fact
out
that they brought her into 2019, and Quill's like, oh my gosh, you're not dead, and she kicked him in the nuts, and that was pretty funny.
Twice. You missed the first time, you got both the second. And I like that too, and how they did the Guardians, because for Guardians 3, it's going to have a brand new dynamic in a way. In a way, the relationship is starting over, but since it's with the same person, Peter Quill is essentially going to be taking a test where he knows all the answers. And just seeing how they develop their relationship again, whether they're able to get back to where they were, or if there's a wrench thrown in the works. Maybe she falls in love with somebody else. Because they did mention the tree. I mean, and Groot was shedding at one point. So...
Or, I mean,
yeah.
Pretty badass.
Why not? Yeah.
That's true.
But still, I don't know. Would a woman want to make love to a tree? I don't know.
I don't know. If you had, like, Thor, and you had Quill there, and you had these two fine men to choose from, would you choose a tree? I wouldn't. I would choose one of the two fine men.
Only one?
Not a raccoon.
Well, if I could have both, I'd take both.
Anyway. So.
Anything we glossed over? Anything we missed?
Go ahead.
I mean, okay, let's talk the emotional roller coaster that was Iron Man dying, because there was a good number of deaths in this film, and it seemed like the most emotional was definitely Tony Stark's.
We've known him the longest. I mean,
yeah.
It kind of like wrestling. With wrestling, if you're a fan, you're a fan of the characters, and if you see these characters on your TV every day, every week for years on end, you have an emotional connection to them. So, seeing everything that Tony Stark went through to finally become the person that he always wanted to be, and then have that be the action that kills him. Man.
Yeah. And it was interesting to see Doctor Strange, where he was like, hey, is this the reality where we win? And he was like, hey man, if I tell you, it won't happen.
And then he holds up the single finger.
Yep. Near
the end. That, in a lot of ways, that part kind of reminded me of season 4 of Doctor Who, the reboot. The last 2 episodes of David Tennant's run as the Doctor were called The End of Time. The End of Time Part 1 and Part 2, where it was the Master in rogue people from Gallifrey, rogue Time Lords that were still alive in a time bubble, trying to destroy the universe, and the Doctor's trying to stop them, all the while remembering that a few episodes back somebody had given him a premonition that, when he knocks 4 times, you will die, or something like that. And, the Doctor in the last episode's fighting everybody. He defeats the bad guys. He's happy. And then you hear 4 knocks. And it was Donna Noble's grandfather knocking. And I loved how Russell T Davies, who wrote and directed that episode, was able to make you temporarily forget that, so that when he was able to remind you that boom, 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 powerful moment. And it's kind of similar in this way too, that there's so much being thrown at you, you're enjoying it, that by the time the emotional impact of an important death kicks in, you're just it makes it that much more heartfelt, I guess.
Yeah, and for a moment there too, when he was sitting there and he was all like kind of burned, and I'm just like, oh, it's not that bad, he'll be fine. he's just got some burns, and they can fix that, and sure he's back, and sure he can fix anything, and then it's very clear that he's just not there anymore, and I'm just like, no.
And they couldn't even tease at one of the things that they'd done recently in the comics, where essentially Tony's mind was transported into a computer, and the Tony Stark you saw in the comics was essentially an AI version or something like that. They couldn't do something like that, but at some point in the future, Iron Man, Tony Stark will be back. It's not going to be Robert Downey Jr., but they're going to find a way to bring that character back, because these are characters that it's like James Bond. You can change these actors and have a different take on them without denigrating the performance of the people that originated it. Like Daniel Craig does an amazing James Bond, so does Sean Connery. They just have different takes, and it's the type of character too, because with these characters, we know just enough about them, but the audience is also putting a lot of their own spin on the character as well. And that's what makes it different than if they tried to remake The Godfather and cast Leonardo DiCaprio as Michael Corleone. That would not be acceptable.
Can we randomly just two things? And I feel like I'm derailing the conversation, but I apologize because
it never happens on this show.
My mind. Anorexic Iron Man and how Captain Marvel found them in space. It threw me off very heavily to see Robert Downey Jr. that thin, and I don't even know if that was CGI or if that was just him kind of actually in the flesh looking like that.
No, that was CGI. It's the same thing they did to Stan Lee with his cameo, "Make love, not war, man." And Michael Douglas.
Okay.
Yeah, because I know there was a movie Christian Bale did where he, before they filmed, he intentionally lost a dangerous amount of weight.
The Machinist.
Yeah, but for this type of movie, it would not make sense to have Robert Downey Jr. lose that weight in order to gain it back again to film the scenes. It would take a few months, I would think.
More than a few months. Plus, it's extremely unhealthy.
Yeah.
And then on top of all that, how did Captain Marvel just find them drifting in space?
You got to think back to when they discovered the planet that Thanos settled on after the snap. This is just speculation. They don't say it in the film per se, but more than likely they had a rough idea, thanks to energy burst from the dead planet Titan, that he would be near that area. That's speculation. It's not said in the movie directly, but I do think that it wasn't a needle in a haystack, as much of a needle in a haystack as you're implying.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and that's another thing about Captain Marvel, because in the interviews leading up to this movie, leading up to Captain Marvel as well, Kevin Feige made a big point of stating that Captain Marvel is more powerful than Thanos, and she was barely in the movie.
Yeah.
Do we have thoughts on that?
I mean, she said it multiple times throughout the movie. The rest of the universe is still trying to cope and deal with the destruction of half of the fucking universe. So she's a part of a police force. She's a part of a system in place that's trying to help structure the rest of the world, the rest of the universe. And she's got shit to do. And it seems like, hey, there's a pretty big need for it now at Earth, and she just came in just fucking punching and kicking and just swinging shit around, and it was intense to see her just come in and yeah, no, I got this giant, massive spacecraft with one punch. Just fucking shit up.
Yeah.
What would have been cool too is if she'd brought some of her space police friends. That would have been interesting if she'd just come to save the day with some of those.
I don't think they've established that yet.
Have they?
No, they didn't. It's in the comics. In the comics, she's... What's the name of that group that she leads in space? It's not S.H.I.E.L.D.
I want to say Space Force, but I know that's not right.
No.
I think that's Trump's garbage.
I want to say it was the Marvel Corps?
Or Carol Corps?
Let me see if I can find it here, but yeah, they didn't establish that she's a part of that particular...
Star Force.
No.
Star Force. Team affiliations... Maybe, not A-Force. Well, she is a part of S.H.I.E.L.D., but there was a name that they had for the...
I believe it was Star Force, if I'm not mistaken.
Maybe. I'll remember it at 3 o'clock this morning. I know I will.
You'll wake up, Star Force!
Fuck! Yeah. Alright. Well, do we have anything more we want to say about one of the greatest movies ever made?
I could not express more about how much this movie exceeded my expectations. It was just everything I asked for. It just was amazing.
I was really bummed that Black Widow died because she's one of my favorite characters in the Avengers franchise. I've really enjoyed her in general because she's a badass, and I was pretty upset that she died. I liked having Captain Marvel come in, and that's great. I enjoyed the movie immensely. I am just bummed that Black Widow died.
Yeah, kind of same thing here. I mean, I want to see where they go with the Black Widow movie, if they make it strictly a prequel, or if they find a way to get her back at some point. Because, unless she just really is just done with this and doesn't want to do it anymore, there's no other reason to permanently kill that character off. And you got to remember, it's a comic book movie. There have been plenty of times where people have been killed off and they've come back even many, many, many years after the point. To me, I think of that little kid who walked by us at the movie theater today. Like, some parent was walking out just before the movie ended, and it was great seeing this little kid, like, walking backwards because he didn't want to turn away from the screen.
I didn't see that. I missed that.
I saw that. It was great, and just how a movie and a movie series like this could... again, make people so emotional. I mean, we had an ovation at the end of the movie when Sterling and I saw it. There, it was like a WWE type of crowd for the final battle scene. It just the fact that
there was so much hype, man.
Yeah, just they delivered big time. You have to see this movie. But on the other hand, don't make this be your first Marvel movie.
Yeah, you're gonna be lost.
At least see Infinity War, like
at minimum of that, or just the Avengers movies, because they do pepper enough of the other stories going on in the main Avengers movies to give you an idea of what's happening, and it's like a comic book as well. I mean, in comics, you may not be a Thor fan, you may never buy a Thor comic, but if you buy an Avengers comic, you're going to be able to keep up relatively well about the current day-to-day dealings of what Thor is doing, and it's the same thing with these movies. The fact that you have so many disparate characters, you don't have to necessarily watch each and every one, but you get so much more out of it if you do.
I would go a step further and say that you should see Black Panther as well as the Avengers movies to really get what's going on here. Because the whole Wakanda universe and the Wakanda tech play such a big part in the fact that they win at the end.
Yeah.
Because without the Wakanda folks...
Oh, the army?
The army?
Yeah.
There was no way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, all right. I think we should call it a wrap right now.
All right.
Thank you all for listening. We hope you enjoyed this episode. And again, if you have not done so, get to the movie theater and watch this movie. This is something that you need to see in a movie theater with a bunch of people. This is not an Adam Sandler movie that you can watch on your iPad in bed at night. Yet this is an event film. You got to go see this movie. I think everybody here is going to agree with me on that.
It will have such an impact just on the way you view it. Like, if you watch it in the theater, you will have an excellent experience.
Yeah, we will. All right. With that, we will see you all later. Goodbye.
Bye.
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 Subscribe to Friends Talking Nerdy on iTunes, the Google Play Music Store, as well as Spotify. Remember to support Friends Talking Nerdy on Patreon. Goodbye, darling.